Guys, what is going on? It is Nate the Game Guy, and today I want to talk to you guys about games that you should never, ever buy under any circumstances whatsoever. What am I talking about? I'm not talking about games that have glitches, games that have bad reviews, games that have bugs, games that need patches. I'm not talking about games with those kind of issues. Instead, I'm talking about games that if you were to buy them, there's a very good chance you can run into some pretty big problems with these specific games in the long run. In this video, I'm going to be covering which games specifically you should avoid at all costs when it comes to adding games to your collection and, of course, building up your own game rooms. So without further ado, let's dive right into this video subject and take a look at what games you should avoid in adding into your own game collections right after the intro. So when it comes to games that you should definitely avoid buying and collecting, I'm going to start things off by talking about avoiding games with cracked inner rings. These are games that you should definitely avoid, and I'm sure you're probably wondering, what am I even talking about? I'm talking about games that are on disc-based format, and even really anything on disc-based format, whether it is a movie, a music CD, does not matter what it is. If it is a disc and it has a cracked inner ring, such as right here, you should definitely avoid buying them. Now, when it comes to cracked inner rings, they usually happen because of poor handling, rough handling, and even sometimes just poor quality when it comes to the casing of the discs that they're in. I've seen this happen a lot with original Xbox games. I've seen it a little bit with PS2 games, but notoriously I've seen it happen with Xbox 360 games. More specifically, 360 games that come with this type of styling of casing. As you can see right here, when it comes to the casing right here with these specific types of Xbox 360 cases, these ones right here are the worst. When it comes to cracked inner rings, these are the ones that really cause the cracked inner rings, especially if you are somebody that quickly pops them out. You know, you just take it in and out without really much thought. It can certainly happen. Unfortunately, I've had it happen to me with my original copy of Halo Reach. And unfortunately, the reason why you want to avoid discs and games with cracked inner rings is because it may not seem like a big deal at first, just a little blemish or a cosmetic flaw here and there, right? But the issue is with that is with those cracked inner rings, they can become bigger over time and unfortunately can cause the disc to be even more cracked. And then when it gets even more cracked, then you run into the problem, the possible scenario of the fact that you will no longer have a working disc. It's just a good idea to avoid discs in general that have cracked inner rings. Of course, one little tip right here I want to share with some of my Xbox 360 collectors that may or may not be watching this video right here. If you have a case such as this, the best way that you can do to avoid having a cracked inner ring is essentially press down on this as hard as you possibly can, laying it down on a flat surface, and then just gently pop the disc out. Of course, once you put the disc back in, make sure that you're pressing this down again as hard as you can. Not too hard, but enough where there's enough pressure to where this has a little bit of give, and then slowly pop the disc back in. Make sure that the grooves are all in place and then slowly release. Unfortunately, when it came to these Xbox 360 games back in the day, Microsoft just, I don't know what they were doing over there, but clearly they weren't thinking right when it came to making these cases. But overall, when it comes to cracked inner rings with games, definitely avoid them just because they will come with problems later down the line. Also, bonus tip as well, when it comes to games where they'll have like a little sticker right along the cracked inner ring, sometimes you got to be careful with those because those stickers may sometimes be covering up some damage that's already there, or in some cases too, they're just there as just to say it's part of some inventory, whether it's like an old video rental place or a game store or whatever. But with those stickers along the inner rings, that's definitely something you may want to be a little mindful about. The next type of game that you should absolutely avoid like the plague when it comes to buying and adding games into your collection are games with scratched label surfaces. What am I talking about? So when it comes to games, if you take a look on top, if you see like a scratched label surface, it can be a problem later down the line depending on where that scratch of the surface is. So a lot of people believe when it comes to games and discs in general that the data is stored below the disc, essentially where the disc is read, where they will think, oh, because a disc is scratched, that is why, they may think that the data is damaged or whatever. But of course, depending on the disc manufacturing, it can be a little different. However, depending on how some of these discs are manufactured, there will be data stored just below the label of a disc. And if you have a scratch that's on top of a disc, there's a very good chance that there might be some data that's damaged. Not all the time, but the possibility is there. And if you are somebody that wants to keep your discs as long as you possibly can and make sure that you'll be able to play your music, your movies, games, whatever, many years later down the line, that can create an issue. So when it comes to buying games and adding them into your collection, that's definitely something that you should be mindful about. Of course, when it comes to scratched disc label surfaces, it leads me into the next type of game that you should absolutely, and is definitely a must, and when it comes to avoiding adding into your collection. So what's this next type of game that you should avoid when it comes to buying and adding games into your collection? I'm talking about games with disc rot. Essentially, just like the name suggests, it's when your disc begins to rot away. Doesn't matter if it is a Blu-ray disc, a video game, a CD-ROM, a DVD, an HD DVD. Does not matter if it is on disc-based format, it can get disc rot. So how does a disc get disc rot? It can happen because of poor manufacturing, poor handling from the consumer, high temperatures for a very long time, not being placed in a climate controlled area, high humidity, along with other different factors as well. I'm not going to cover every single detail about disc rot right here in this video because I got another video that you can check out right here where I do go a lot more into detail about disc rot, but covering some of the basics here, disc rot can take a couple of different forms. There could be little pinholes that you can see when you shine a disc under a light, and you can see like little pinholes shining through. It can look like essentially like there's some type of mold infection or whatever when you are taking a look at a disc. I've noticed a lot of times too, these cases of disc rot can happen if there's like a little crack somewhere within a disc, sometimes where there is surface damage to where the disc had some scratches right on top of the label of the surface of the disc. It's an unfortunate situation, and what's also really sad about it too is that there is literally no way to fix disc rot whatsoever. You can't resurface a disc with disc rot. You can't put a bunch of dehumidifiers in your area. You just, unfortunately, once it is there, and it is going to continue spreading throughout your disc, and it can essentially cause permanent damage to your disc, meaning that one day you will never be able to watch your movie, game, listen to your music CD or whatever. It's an unfortunate situation. Again, I do go into a lot more detail about disc rot in my other video, but I will say one thing, even though you should definitely avoid games with disc rot, do not be alarmed. Don't be freaking out because there's a thing called disc rot. Obviously, be aware of it. There's certainly some things that you can do to help avoid disc rot when it comes to collecting disc-based media. Again, check out my video where I do go into a lot more detail about the subject. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out my video. Please be sure to check out these videos here, and here. After all, I post a lot of content when it comes to game collecting tips, and other video game related subjects. So be sure to keep an eye out every Monday and Friday where I upload consistently, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.